Welcome everyone to the TICI panel discussion. My name is Peter Lee. I'm a faculty member here at Trinity, and I've been working with Dr. Cha and on the Thriving Immigrant Congregations Initiative. On the research side of the initiative, I've been working with Dr. Cha for the past 2 years, and today I'm given the honor of serving as the host of this panel discussion. You all just came from hearing some of the first-hand stories of the 11 churches that have been on the learning journey with us for the past 2 years. And if that was more of a street level or road level view or encounter of these churches, what we're going to do now is something of a balcony level view and observations of these 11 churches. So we have 3 panelists with us from the faculty of Trinity with us today who will share with us their observations and insights. And I'm going to introduce them to you. Please hold your applause until I introduce all 3 of them, okay? Sitting next to me is Dr. T. Tienu. He's a research professor of theology of mission, the T. Tienu Chair of Global Theology and World Christianity, Dean Emeritus of Trinity Evangelical Divinity School. I know, I'm giving you pain, am I not? And the director of the Paul G. Hebert Center for World Christianity and Global Theology. And he's been with us in this journey, in this learning journey from the beginning, observing and reflecting on everything. And next to Dr. Tienu is Dr. Deborah Colwell. We call her Deb, Dr. Deb Colwell. She is professor of educational and leadership studies here at Trinity. And she also serves as the department chair for educational ministries. And she brings her expertise in organizational change and leadership studies today. And we get to hear from her tomorrow again in her session. And sitting next to her is Dr. Peter Cha. He is professor of church, culture, and society here at Trinity. And he's the director of TICI. And he's the architect and the mastermind of this entire 5-year project called TICI. And he probably knows everything about TICI and more. So we have 3 panelists. Give them a big applause, please. So we're going to start with a more broader question about the learning journey during the past 2 years. So as you read through the 11 churches' reports and narratives on their 2-year learning journey, what were some of the things that stood out for you and why? So whichever of you would like to start, just go ahead.
We were conversing here, and I heard from my colleague, Dr. Colwell, the suggestion that I begin. So I hear and I obey. First of all, I want to thank each of you in your churches for having produced the reports that we asked you to produce. Thank you for coming to this summative conversation, and so I want to start with that. That I as I read through, my first thought was one of gratitude for the work that went into what you submitted to us. I will just mention one thing that stood out in all 11 reports. It is the importance of attending to relationship building. That stood out. It didn't, I mean, not every report said it that way, but it comes across. the importance of attending to relationship building. That seemed to be present everywhere. So that stood out. And for me, that's a positive thing. So let's begin with positive things. There'll be less positive to come.
Well, welcome everyone, and I wish you could sit up here and see all the amazing faces. This is heaven. This is what heaven's gonna be like. So I just want to begin by saying thank you so much for all your hard work on the road. That it really blessed my heart to read these stories and the reports. I can show you, I devoured them. I have like sticky notes and little colored pencil markings, and I really studied them because I learned so much. So thank you. One of the things that I was just very encouraged by and stood out to me was how both humble and honest you were with the acknowledgement of generational differences and gap. Yet also, again, to Teet's point of wanting to then come together and have that desire to be together, and the need for fellowship and healing, authentic connection and two-way communication, and appreciating I'm reading quotes now, appreciating the unique contributions of each generation. I thought that was a really lovely way of saying that. And so just the need for fellowship and the wanting to lean in and have reconciliation and trust building in the relationship. So that's really what stood out to me. Oh, hold it closer. Okay. I might break out in song if I hold it back.
And we want to hear it. So let me first begin by explaining one thing, and that is both my colleagues mentioned about the reports that 11 churches submitted. So when we combined it, it was about 60 pages. And these will be available to all of you. Sometime in November, we're going to download them into an ebook, plus today's presentation recordings. So it's all going to be available to not just 11 churches, but anyone who is interested in reading about these reports, they will be available to you. Now, as I went through these 11 reports, there were a number of churches made this observation. You know, when we came into TICI journey very early on, when we went to Virginia to be part of that first gathering in Open Door Presbyterian Church, we thought we would gain an insight and almost like a magical understanding of how to fix this problem right away. And that we will have spectacular transformative change experience in our church. That's what they expected. But then they said, reality turns out to be a lot more, in some ways, frustrating, because what it was small incremental changes. In fact, there was one person who wrote a report said, let's have a big picture, but let's take small steps. And I thought that was a huge insight, because when I was a young pastor serving in an immigrant church in 1990s, we used to have this big immigrant church conferences for second generation pastors, and we went to a lot of those. But I think what we were looking for was that big magical answer to our problem. And often when we didn't quite hear that, we walked away disappointed and did not try anything differently. So that's something I observed. Incremental changes and keep going toward the same direction. And I think that's why this 2-year learning journey is an important thing. That it was not a one-time conference we all attended and walked away with one answer that would work for all churches, but we walked away with a commitment we made to each other within the team and between the generations. And so it's a long journey toward the same direction is a gift we received.
Let me ask you a follow-up question. in these 11 reports, quite a number of churches mentioned the need for intentionality in order to develop intergenerational partnerships within their churches. And it was quite striking that so many churches would mention that. So would any of you like to comment on that, the need for intentionality?
Well, let me start out by saying so that my colleagues will come up with a real wisdom. To me, intentionality means commitment and prioritizing. I mean, we are intentional about some things because that's important to us. And one of the things I realized reading these 11 reports is all these immigrant churches are having very busy season of ministry, right after COVID especially. There are so many ministry activities we have to attend to. And so this intergenerational partnership building simply could be one among many things that we have to do. And so it becomes less of a priority because this is a long-term thing. This is not a short-term putting out the fire, but it's a long-term commitment. So I think when we say intentionality, it seems to me that 11 churches here that pursued intentionality, they did so because they prioritized this as a very high value. And that's how, to me, that's what it speaks of.
Amen. I wrote notes. I did. No, I wrote notes. So one of the things I heard with regard to intentionality, which I really love the way that this was named, is preparing environments that foster spaces for listening. What a great thing to do. Because I think in intergenerational spaces, we make assumptions sometimes. And when you create spaces of safety to listen, then it unwires the unlearning that Brother Jonathan, right, was talking about in this session in here. And then the relearning. So I just really liked that a lot. Intentional environments to foster spaces for listening.
I don't know if there's any wisdom left on that one, but I want to just comment on linking all of this with the idea of building relationships. That building relationships is not a program. It requires that we actually attend to human beings as they are. And it means, therefore, that we have to look at the humans, hear the humans. Years ago, I think more than 30 years ago, I said to some people when I was frustrated, mission leaders, I said, the first act of Christian mission should be listening. That should be the first act. And I followed that by saying, we cannot actually work together if we don't know each other. So it sounds so simple, but this is where churches fail or succeed, in my opinion, by taking seriously the humans and their memories, their stories, and then you can discover joyful possibilities of working together.
If I could add to what T just mentioned, you know, TICI journey experience did not come out of vacuum. Someone jokingly said I was a mastermind behind organizing it, but it's only because I learned my lessons by carefully looking at what other leaders are doing. So I'm gonna embarrass him a bit, but Dr. Tienu and I came to this school same year in 1997. And when we went to faculty meetings on this campus, It was in a stadium-seated classroom where we look at the back of each faculty members, and then we're trying to carry out an agenda in a business meeting. And it was a very different kind of culture. There was a very little relationship building happening among the faculty, and we were just trying to attend to the business and get out of there as quickly as we can. When Dr. Tieno became the dean, he decided to, first of all, move the time to lunchtime. And then we meet here, actually, round tables. We have lunch together first. And in that lunchtime, we don't have a business agenda. We're just sitting next to each other. How are you doing? What's going on? How's the semester going? Some might think that's a waste of time, but it wasn't. That's where the relationship is being built among the faculty. And then when we go into business meeting, I felt like the tone of our conversation changed. And in fact, we became more efficient and effective because we were understanding each other. And if so-and-so says certain opinion or idea, we were not quick to judge or second guess. But we were, okay, I need to hear this more. So, you know, in our TICI journey, we always sat around the table and discussed. It came from somewhere. So when Dr. Tieno was saying, we need to first have this human relationship with one another before we could really work well with each other, I think is one of the lessons that we try to bring into TICI journey. And it's pretty clear that many of you very much picked on that value of having a relationship in some ways is even more important than getting things done.
I want to do something to him. For the record, he should never mention my name again for the rest of this time. I do not want that kind of thing. But I think that it's. I think that the only thing I would add is, at least in our experience here, part of it is to have round tables, not square, not rectangle, and no assigned seating. So when you come, you look around. Sometimes your friend's table is already fully occupied. Guess what? You have to go where there's an open place. You may not like that colleague from the practical theology department. I want to sit with my department people, but guess what? It's taken. So you actually have to speak to people you don't normally speak to. And some of the things that I heard in your own reports is the same thing. You know, first gen people used to just stay together, second gen people used to stay together, but we discovered that if they actually begin to sit at the same table with each other, something happens. They discover that these people don't have horns. I mean, they're really Christian too. Anyway, sorry.
Just reflecting on what you just mentioned, some of the churches wrote in those reports that we are just so busy doing ministry, we rarely get a chance to really get to know each other. And throughout this learning journey, it provided a space and time for us to not do ministry, but actually from shifting from doing toward being. And I thought that was quite insightful. And that's been, I believe, the experience of all the churches that have been with us for the past 2 years. Are there some other things that stood out for you in these reports that you read?
If I could add one more thing, when my team and I were designing this learning journey 3 years ago, we were very intentional about inviting immigrant churches from different ethnic backgrounds to come together. We didn't know who will come, but we said we're not just going to focus just on Koreans or just Chinese. We want it to be more multi-ethnic learning journey. And then a couple of us said, but will it work? I think it'll work for second generation because they work in a work setting or go to school. They have many different ethnic folks coming to that setting. But for our first generation, because of the language and so forth, will they be willing to come to this kind of place? Well, one of the things that came out very clearly in your reports is how much many of you so appreciated going outside of your ethnic boundary and make new friends and learn with and learn from other ethnic churches' experiences. And how, for especially immigrant churches, that kind of experience is very uncommon and rare. And how, in some ways, they foretasted, as Professor Colwell said, this is what heaven is like. How having that kind of fellowship and learning was a very enriching part of this journey. So I was talking with our colleagues here, maybe Trinity Evangelical Divinity School should make a more intentional effort to create this kind of learning space and invite leaders and members from different ethnic immigrant churches to come and learn with and from each other, that this should not be just 2-year journey and end, but can there be other such a space where our brothers and sisters from Nigeria can learn from our Latino brothers and sisters and Asian immigrant church leaders and so forth. So I thought that was something that came out of your reports saying how much you appreciated that. And now we're trying to think out, is there some future to that possibility?
I would like to amen that. And one of the reports, the folks said, it's so wonderful to know that we're not alone on the journey, and that we are walking similar yet very different journeys. And so I'm reminded of Richard Foster, who talks about in Christian formation, in meaning individually, but also collectively, that there's a major highway that God wants us all to move to be more like Christ. But there's also a tailored journey. And God is with us in both of those. And I love that came out in the report. So that's, I think that's really lovely. And I would so encourage you to keep these relationships going. Boy, to have that good conversation is really, really important.
We're going to move on to the next question now. As you see the current realities faced by our 11 cohort churches, what are some concerns you might have? And what really encourages you and also gives you hope?
Dr. Lee, that's not one question. So can we have one question, please?
You get to choose.
Okay, I'll choose, for myself, I'll choose the issue of concerns. And then toward the end, I will come back to hope. But for now, it's concerns. One concern I have is for all of you to not consider this a destination, but a beginning. So my concern is, what kind of resources will you decide on your own to devote to continuing this journey? That's really my concern.
Well, thank you. Well,
You
Deb or Peter?
Yeah, sorry, I was taking notes. It's going to be on video, though. That's really good.
Yeah.
We'll name the one that I think is so cool. Food, fellowship, fun. And that's where those conversations can happen, is around the dinner table, as to your point earlier, Peter. And one report, they said, we're so grateful for those times together. We're grateful and growing. Isn't that lovely? So that encouraged me. That was a hopeful. I went to the hopeful space.
That's
Okay,
good.
very
That's
good.
That's good.
Yep. Well, thank you.
Oh, one concern I have is, as I read your 11 reports, it's so clear that many of you pointed out, I don't think we could have come this far if we were still in isolation, just as a single church trying to make something happen. So you clearly expressed how helpful it was for you to be part of this learning community of 10 other churches. I'm reminded of that proverb, I think it's from Rwanda, that said, if you want to go somewhere fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. So as our program ends for 2-year learning journey, I pray and hope that you don't slip back into that complete isolation again. You already made some friendship network with other churches around here. That you would find efforts, intentionality to continue to be in the fellowship, to learn with and from each other and so forth. And we'll talk about this on the final day. Our TICI team is kind of thinking about, is there a way for us to go forward together somehow? So we want to share some of our ideas with you, but that you don't slip back into isolation. That is my concern.
Would you like to come back to hope part now?
Well, yes. Yes, of course, there's hope. So I expressed concern. Now, since you came back to me, Dr. Lee, here it is. I think my hope is that there has been a collective wisdom in the learning that has been here. And my hope is that each one of you, each one of the churches, will revisit their story at least once a year and attend to what remains for us to be doing. In other words, this is not a report for us. It is not a report for posterity only. It's actually a roadmap for yourself. Consider the whole report as roadmaps for yourselves. So revisit that from time to time, at least once a year, and see what can we be doing for the thriving aspect of our congregation where God has placed us. That's my hope, and it's possible. It is possible, actually.
Yeah, it was pretty clear that there was a tremendous momentum built in each of the 11 churches throughout this journey. And my question was, how would they continue this momentum? How would they carry this forth? So that would be my concern. But I also saw a very strong desire on the part of 11 churches to see their churches unified as one across generations and cultures, and really see themselves reaching out to the kind of people that they never reached out before. So that was really hopeful for me personally.
So, Dr. Lee, I think that maybe since some of the words lifted out of the report is the small steps, just keep on finding small steps on which to that you need to take on a regular basis. If you don't take a step or two every year, you will be stagnant. So don't do that to yourself. just decide we want to take one step, maybe two, every year. And then you will see what God will do.
Right. In a sense, most of these churches took that important and difficult step of creating a new structure, like a weekly, maybe monthly, quarterly, even annual church life rhythm that can help them achieve this internal unity and missional impact. So I think that was very important for all the churches actually making that step. And now the question would be, how are you going to continue on this journey? So I'm going to move to the next question now. I'm very mindful of the time we have. So what might be a broader lesson for all of us? Maybe a takeaway lesson from the journey taken by these 11 churches?
So these are the lessons for not only immigrant churches, but for churches
all of us
more
in
broadly.
this room and beyond.
So let me begin. I used to think this was the burden of immigrant churches, that we have to somehow constantly work through the conflict between first and second generation members and leaders in the church. When I went through the ministry, pastoral ministry in the immigrant church, this was number one issue that confronted us. This is during 1980s and 90s. I mean, it started way back when. The constant conflict of perspectives and values between first and second generation that caused many second generation to leave immigrant churches. And I was one of those young pastors who ended up leaving immigrant church in 1992 because I saw no future here for someone like myself. So I used to see that as a painful kind of cross to bear for immigrant church. But now I'm beginning to think that this is actually providing a wonderful opportunity for immigrant churches to come up with ways that would not just help other immigrant churches, but also broader churches outside of the immigrant community. And this is what I mean. I think many of you know that most US churches are continually losing younger generation, even those who grew up in their churches. And then this June, I went out to Korea to teach a Doctor of Ministry course there, and I'm learning from all these Korean pastors in Korea saying they're losing all their young people. And when I listen to them, it's partly because a lot of times the leadership of these churches, who are older in general, particularly in Asian context, they know losing young people is a problem, but it's not an immediate problem. So they keep delaying wrestling with that. Immigrant churches cannot delay this longer and longer because it's more immediate day-to-day challenge because of the language difference and the cultural difference. So in some ways, this generational challenge and conflict is forcing immigrant churches to utilize spiritual, theological resources, cultural resources, and educational resources to try to figure out a way to engage with this issue constructively long-term. So I'm wondering, maybe there are multiple things that immigrant churches can offer to the broader church outside the immigrant community, but this finding ways, finding lessons and insights about bridging a generational gap could be, in fact, one of the important contributions we can make to not only US churches, but churches in our homeland as well that are really wrestling with this issue as well.
Dr. Cha, I want to follow up immediately. I know that Dr. Cole will speak, but if I don't follow up immediately, I will forget what I have in mind right now. So pardon me for immediately. You use one word that came out of what you said is cultural. Cultural. All churches throughout all generations have had to attend to being, to understanding where they are at a particular time. But by that I mean they had to attend to what culture are they in if they want to be able to speak to the people as they are. So that is the lesson that I think this journey can help all of us who are obviously ethnic and obviously immigrant, that we can also give to the rest of the churches in the US that forgot that they are also obviously ethnic, obviously immigrant, and that there are cultural changes happening over and over and over. White American culture is not a singular thing, whatever that means. In fact, it has the complication that I heard from the report here. All of you are keenly aware that if you have a Mandarin-speaking church congregation, a Cantonese-speaking congregation, young people in your church, you have not just one or two cultures, you have multiple cultures. I'm just using that example, but you all are aware of it. It came through, right? So what you should be telling yourself is, this is not a burden for us alone. Guess what? The white churches suffer the same problem. Maybe if they read your reports and they attend to some of the things that you were able to do for thriving in the future, maybe God will teach them a lesson or two. That's what I'm taking away.
So it is such an honor to sit between these two gentlemen. Back in the day, I came here as a scruffy MDiv student. And early conversation with Dr. Cha, one of the things he said was, I don't think it's cultural gap as much anymore. I think it's generational, like, period. And I may be misquoting you there, so you can correct that if you want to. But that's what I heard. And from that point on in my journey, I started to live into as a practitioner, but also study intergenerational leadership development. That's the impact that had on me, Peter. And Dr. Tianu, I had a class with him in my PhD studies here on cross-cultural theology, and I still, from that class, have vivid memories of the wisdom there. So I'm a little bit, if you know me, I get a little bit misty when I go down memory lane, and yet what is just so lovely is to see the fruit and hear about the fruit of your hard work, leaning in and wanting to lead the way, as Peter is named, which is just, isn't that just like God to do that? Isn't that just like God?
Peter Lee said you should not clap, but maybe this is the time to clap for God.
Did I say that? All right, one last question. Is there something you would like to say that you weren't able to say? It's wide open. You can say whatever you'd like to say now.
Well, there's one thing that I would like to say that I was not able to say is this journey has been an equalizing journey for all of you. I want you to remember that. There is no higher and lower church here. There is no better or not so good church here. It's an equalizing journey. And to the extent that you do not take yourself too seriously, to the extent that you don't take your church too seriously, to the extent that you avail yourself constantly of God's grace, to the extent that you avail yourself of the learning possibilities from the smallest churches, you will be better in ministry. That's the final thing I want to say.
So I love metaphors. That's because Jesus used them all the time. And one of my metaphors that I love to think about, my daughter Hannah is a climber. So she climbs crazy mountains and things like that. We have pictures of her hanging like this, like underneath a ledge, right? And she says, Mom, whenever you are on a journey, take the next step, keep taking the next step as a climber, and then 3 points of contact, so 2 feet and 1 hand, and then you can turn around and look and see how far you've come. Because when you're climbing a mountain, you're looking at the mountain, right? But you need to pause and turn around and look, both for encouragement of how far you've come, but also for accountability. And that's, you named that in your reports, to stay accountable, to take that next faithful step and finish to get to the summit. And then when you get to the summit, you realize, oh, wow, there's 4 more mountain ranges to come. Right? I'm from Colorado, can you tell? But thank you for all the good work that you're doing to the glory of God. And to just, my mom used to say that's where Hannah got to take the next faithful step in the Lord. And before you know it, you've climbed a mountain.
I can really resonate with what you just said. Earlier today, I was looking through the survey data from the 4 different surveys that we've taken over the 2-year period. And boy, you've come a long way. You surely have. So I want to applaud you for that.
And Dr. Peter Lee will share that tomorrow afternoon, right? Yeah. So when I was in my final MDiv year, I was a youth pastor, 1985. And my church sent me to a youth pastor's retreat or conference at Moody Bible Institute. And at the final event that evening, the plenary speaker said something that I carried with me since then. He said something like this: you cannot make your students to grow. That's Holy Spirit's job. And that's true. But you can create a space in which they can grow. That's your job. And of course, the space that he's talking about is not just physical space, but it's also emotional space, spiritual space, cultural space. He said, attend to that. And one thing, as I was going through all your 11 reports, is that the work that you have done as leaders, as pastors and lay leaders, representing both first and second generation in your congregation, I think the work that you did is you created new spaces that didn't exist before. And also, you changed some space that was not too welcoming to second generation. You tried to create a new congregational culture that's embracing both first and second generation. So in many ways, the work you have done is trying to create that new space in which your people can grow through the power of the Holy Spirit. And I pray that you will continually use the skill sets you gained here and the experiences you gained here to continually create that new space for God's people, that they would all feel welcome no matter what cultural or generational background they come from.
We're going to move into Q&A now. And looking at the time, we have time for only 2 questions. Maybe 3. And I asked that only those members from our 11 cohort churches come up and ask questions just to honor their time and investment in this project, and also if they have any follow-up question to the panel, since we've read your reports. So yes, yeah. There are 2 microphones up here, so you can go to one microphone over there, please.
Can I address the question specifically to
Please say your name and your church and a brief question. No lecturing, please.
Okay, name, church name, right? My name is Joseph, and I'm serving Hebron Presbyterian Church in Chicago. Thank you, Dr. Tienu, Dr. Colwell, and Dr. Cha, and Dr. Lee, all those thoughtful observation and analyzing our data. Actually, I have 2 questions.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. With your permission. First question is, it's kind of my selfish question, but I'm curious, Dr. Tienu, Dr. Colwell, Dr. Cha, after observing all these data, findings, as a researcher, if you pick one specific topic as your next research, what could that be?
That's a really nerdy question. He's a graduate of our PhD program, so we are to be blamed for.
I can go while you think. So for me, it would be, oh my goodness, I would love to talk to you about what you're doing with regard to intergenerational leadership development. Wow, is that important to help even the generations that aren't even born yet? Thinking about how can we help them grow in being leaders? That's my space.
My space would be researching the importance of lay people in real thriving aspects of church.
Can you say that
The
again?
importance
Sorry.
of lay people.
Lay people.
The lay people to do much more serious work on the place of lay persons in congregational thriving. That's the one thing I would do.
For me, last several years, I've been thinking about this concept called, it's not mine, it's written by a Christian author. He used the phrase traditioned innovation. That as God's people, what we need to learn to do well, especially as our mission field is changing, we cannot just do the same thing we've done in the past. We got to be innovative, but also anchored in a particular tradition that God has given us. So what does a tradition, the innovation, look like in the immigrant churches? And what role might first generation play in the tradition, the innovation? What might second generation play? How do we collaboratively do that well? The tradition, the innovation, I think that would be my research topic.
You had a second question, Dr. Saul?
Actually, I was going to ask a second question, but your answers to our first question answered my second question.
Okay.
Already.
Oh,
Thank you so much.
praise God.
Another person who would like to ask a question? While waiting, I could give you my research topic, which is to explore the intercultural dimension of immigrant congregations. So I'd love to talk to you about that in the future. Okay, please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Philemon Chan. I'm from Trinity Grace Church. Thank you, all 4 of you up here, for your time and care and reading through all of our reports and all the wisdom you share too. So My question, so since we are like the first round test subjects, so to speak, what, like after running through TICI learning journey like this one time, what are some things that are already on your mind that you're thinking, I would change this for if we're gonna do it again a second time?
Well, let's go to Dr. Cha.
Very good, very good.
Okay, once again, I will share with you my thoughts so that we will hear wisdom flowing from my colleagues here. Very good question. Dr. Tieno and I talked about this. How do we take what we've learned, this model, and trying to make it more accessible to a wider number of immigrant churches? So, for instance, does that mean cutting down learning journey period from 2 years to 1 year? Because there were many churches who were interested in doing this. It's just they couldn't make a 2-year commitment. Or can we make this TICI project to different regions so that people don't have to spend a lot of time flying around to experience this and make it a regional experience? So those were some of the kind of tradition, the innovation that we're trying to think about. Because one thing that we learned from this that confirmed what we think is valuable is a notion of learning journey. So it's not just one-time conference experience. And then second is a learning community that we learn together as a church. So those two things are non-negotiable. That's our tradition part. The innovation part, we're very open. In fact, I would love to get some of your inputs because you've gone through it, and any feedback you might offer to us to make this experience more widely available to other immigrant churches, we would be very open to that.
I think that's
That's
sufficient, right?
sufficient, yes.
Okay, last question,
Yeah,
Pastor
last
John.
question. My name is John. I serve at Open Door Presbyterian Church, designated van driver for TICI as well. So in light of the report, is there anything you would advise us with regard to raising and creating space for the third generation? So they're quickly growing up in our congregation. So what are maybe 2 or 3 things for us to keep in mind or to be intentional about in terms of raising the third generation in a first and second generation congregation or culture?
Well,
Eyes are on Dr. Cha.
See, notice he doesn't even look at me as he says that. Well, actually, Cornerstone Chinese Church, 115 years of history. There is a church that has the third generation, I would assume. Now, here's my thought. So in a way, that's why I'm so grateful for that additional funding that Lily gave us to do the Youth Forum Initiative. Because Dr. Tieno, when he and I talked about this, he said, we need to provide as much resource and consulting to youth ministries of particularly immigrant churches that have a shorter history right now, and that's primarily African diaspora churches. That before cement gets solidified, we have a way of working with churches to shape their youth ministry in such a way that, for instance, Korean church, we went through a lot of challenges during 1990s about how to do youth ministry well. Well, we got some wisdom from our failures as well as success that we could share. But we could develop more resources for that youth ministry there. Now, hopefully for the more established immigrant churches with the first and second generation adults. Now, some of you might disagree with me on this one, but when I think about current state of a youth ministry in immigrant churches, that's not a whole lot different than youth ministry I've done in 1990s. We also, as a youth ministry, need to move further down because a third generation context is different than ours. And the US as a place of living and ministry is different than what it was 1990s. So we want to think more proactively about how do we think about tradition to innovation for youth ministry for immigrant churches today, not 1990s?
I think that the thing to add here, with your permission, Dr. Cha, would be, might there be a way of problematizing even the vocabulary we use, generations? When we say third generation, what do we actually mean in a country like this one? Because our grandchildren, let me just be personal, my grandchildren, I can call them third generation, which would signify that I'm in charge. But do they consider themselves third generation? Or do they consider themselves just American? I think that's one thing I would encourage you to think about. And the other side of that is, let's take very seriously the importance of globalization as we think about our children and grandchildren, third, fourth generation. We're going to have to learn more with them and about them than we care to know. They're not us. I wish they were. It's easier if they were, I think, but they're not us. So we just need to do much more serious work in that regard, I think, Pastor Cha.
Well, let's all thank our panelists for their sharing their insights and wisdom today. Thank you so much.